Hey, how you doing? Today we are going to talk about components because we will use them all the time. If you have a look, any object on the scene have few components. It is transform component, the camera has camera component, our player has sprite renderer and player movement script component, transform and so on. So always when we want to expand the object functionality, add something extra, we need to add some additional component to it, and later on inside the script most of the time you would have to make a reference to this component to change some settings or get some information and so on. So today I'm going to show you how to get this component into the script. Let's say that we are going to have a task. Whenever we use left mouse button, then we want to change the color of our player, for example. In that case, we need to get a reference to the sprite renderer component and change this color. And the important thing is that our script where we are going to write the code is on the same object as this component that we try to get. This is quite important. So let's open the script. And if we want to get this component and change some property, we can just use getComponent method, and now in the angle brackets we can specify which component we want to get. So we need to put type of this component. We want to get sprite renderer, so this is what we are going to type inside this angle brackets. Now we need to put parentheses, and after the dot we will get all the properties or methods that this component provides. So we want to change the color. So let's type color equals, and we can create our own color, or we can choose one of the predefined ones. So let's use that one first, color, and let's say blue. We made a reference to this component and we get into that component and called the color property and changed its color to blue. Let's go back. When I press play, it should change its color to blue. Ta-da! Yes, that was great. And this method is okay when we make only one connection, when we want to do something only once. But if we need this component few times in our script, this is not a good idea because it is slow and getting reference to this component takes time. Of course, we won't notice that, but you know, everything adds up and in the end, we might lose some frames per second in our game. So we need to be as effective and take care about the performance all the time. So in order to make it better, we can cache this reference into the variable. So let's go here and create a variable that will hold this component. So of course it has to be of type sprite renderer. So let's type sprite renderer and let's name it sprite renderer because why not? And now we've got this variable, so we can cache the reference into that. So let's go in here and let's use whatever Visual Studio try to propose to us. Look, Visual Studio is a really smart guy. He says that sprite renderer equals getComponent sprite renderer, and this is exactly what we need, and we call it caching. We cache this component into this variable, and now once it's done, we can use this variable to do plenty of nice things in this component. So now we use this variable, we get into the color property and change it to blue, but now let's change it to red, why not? So now it should work exactly the same. Our player will change its color to red. Great. And now we have it written in a little bit better way because we cache this reference into the variable. Maybe I will show you how to flip it. So let's go back into the code And now let's say we want to flip it. So sprite renderer variable. Now we'll put a dot and we need to find flip, and let's use flip x equals to true. So as you can see, it takes a bool value. So whenever we put true, it means that it should be flipped along the x-axis. So let's go back, press play, and now it should be directed to the left. Great, working fine. But I told you that we are going to create something like that. Whenever we click on the left mouse button, we will assign a random color to our player. So let's do this now. Let's go here and create our own function so that we can practice a little bit what we have learned before. And let's call it change color. We need to create our own new color. It will be of type color32 because there is a normal color as well, but normal color will use those values from 0 to 1, and I prefer to use the values from 0 to 255, and because of that we need to use this type color32. Let's call it color equals, and now we need to create a new color, so we will type new color32, and now inside the parentheses, if you could see this overloads, we have to provide 4 different values for the red, green, blue and alpha channel. And those values needs to be between 0 and 255. So in order to do that, we will use random class. Now we will use range method, and in here we need to provide the values from 0 to 256, because you know that 256 will never be selected. The last number will be 255. And of course we need to provide 4 of those to fill all 4 channels. But before we do that, there is something wrong and we cannot leave it as it is, because you know that random range will return the integer value, and the color32 variable needs to have byte type, and byte type is smaller than integer. So we need to make sure that this number will be casted into the byte type. So in order to do that, in front of this method, we need to type byte like that. And this will cast whatever gets from this method into the byte number. And this is it. We can copy it and put comma and paste it, and paste it again, and paste it again, and this is it. Semicolon at the end. But this is not a good way of writing code. The code should be visible on the screen. There should be no need to move our screen to the right and to the left. All the code needs to be visible at once. So we need to format our instruction, and we can do this way. Let's go here and press enter. Let's press enter here and here and here, and maybe let's put it there. And it looks much better. In here we created a random color, and now we need to assign this color to our sprite renderer. So let's do this at the end. I will call it, oh, can you see? The Visual Studio knows better than us what we should do, and it says that sprite renderer color equals color. I'm surprised how smart is this Visual Studio. It's really amazing. So what we do here, we take the component sprite renderer, we get into the color property, and we change its color to our own color that we've made just here. Now we need to add functionality. Whenever left mouse button is clicked, we will change this color. So in the update method, we will type if input and now get mouse button down, and we will call change color function that we just created. Amazing! So let's go back into the Unity and press play. And now whenever I click, you can see that our player is changing its color. Great. Maybe I will remove this flip X because I don't really like it, and everything is working fine. But now I want to show you the other way. How can we get some components into our script? We know that we can get component methods, but there is some other way. We don't have to use this getComponent method. We can just use serialize field attribute. And thanks to that, we will expose this variable in inspector. So now we can comment this out because we don't really need this line of code. We can go back into Unity, and here you can see that we've got a field where we can just drag and drop this component. And now when I press play, everything should work exactly as before. Great. And now let's say that we want to do exactly the same thing, but on the other object, on the main camera object, and we want to get into the camera component, change background color. How can we do that? So let's go back into the script, and now instead of sprite renderer component, we want to get into the camera component, and we can call it cam. Okay, just to make it a little bit different. This one I will remove, and this one I will remove as well because it was regarding another component. Because we use serialize field, we can do exactly the same thing. Let's go back to Unity. Now in the player movement script, we've got a field of type camera, and we need to get the component of the camera from this object. How can we do that? We can just grab the whole object and drag and drop it in this place. Because Unity will find that on this object there is a component of the camera. That's why we don't have to just go and try to drag and drop this component. We just drag and drop the whole object into this spot. And now we know that in this component we need to get into the background property and change its color. So let's go back into the script, and here where we are changing the color, we can specify that we need the cam variable because in this variable is this whole component, and we need to get into the background color property and assign color to it. And that's it. It's pretty much done now. So we can go back into Unity, press play, and see if it's working. Let's click, and ta-da! We've got a disco. Great. Getting components into the script is quite easy. We can do this by serializing our variable and just drag and drop the reference in the inspector, or we can use the special method getComponent. And you just saw that in most cases we will try to cache our components into the variable, and I strongly encourage you to do that because it's a really good way.